The town of Ravenswood was a place forgotten by time. It huddled deep within ancient forests. Trees with twisted branches clawed at the sky. Their leaves whispered secrets only the wind could understand. Roads leading in were few. Roads leading out felt even fewer. A perpetual twilight seemed to cling to the town. Sunlight struggled to pierce the dense canopy above. It made the shadows long. It made them dance. Ravenswood was a world unto itself, isolated and strange. Dominating the outskirts stood Ravenwood Manor, a skeletal silhouette against the bruised sky. Locals avoided it, especially after dark. They said it was cursed, haunted, a place where shadows breathed. Elara Thorne belonged to Ravenswood. She was 17, but her eyes held an age far beyond her years. She had grown up with the Whispering Woods as her backyard. Unlike others, she was not afraid. She was drawn to the mysteries, pulled by an invisible thread. The town's secrets called to her. She felt like an outsider even here. She was a seeker. Her dark hair often fell into her eyes the color of a stormy sea, always searching. She spent hours in the town's dusty library, poring over forgotten texts, local histories filled with cryptic entries, tales of the unexplained. She roamed the edges of the forest, feeling the thrum of ancient magic. He arrived on a day cloaked in mist, the kind of mist that swallowed sounds and distorted shapes. It was sudden. No one saw him enter Ravenswood. He simply appeared, as if materializing from the fog itself. The wind died down that afternoon. An unnatural stillness fell upon the town. Even the ever-present ravens were silent. Their black eyes watched from the skeletal branches, waiting. The air grew colder, not the cold of winter, but a chill that seeped into the soul. His name, they would soon learn, was Lucian. He was a silhouette of darkness, tall, lean, with hair as black as a moonless night. Liam Henderson had known Elara his whole life. He was the town's golden boy, or as golden as Ravenswood allowed, solid, dependable. He cared for Elara deeply, perhaps more than she knew. He often worried about her fascination with the darker aspects of their town, her solitary wanderings, her quiet intensity. He represented safety, familiarity, a life away from the encroaching shadows that Elara seemed so drawn to. He was the light to her dusk. Liam noticed the change in Elara immediately after Lucian's appearance. A new spark in her eyes, a heightened awareness, but also a new layer of secrecy. Elara Thorne was not just a resident of Ravenswood, she was woven from its oldest threads. Her grandmother, a woman with eyes like chipped flint, had filled Elara's childhood with stories, not fairy tales, but whispers of the town's true shadowed history, tales of pacts made in moonlight, of guardians who walked the tree line. These stories had settled deep within Elara. They shaped her, they made her seek the unseen, they made her listen to the silence between heartbeats. Her connection to Ravenswood was visceral, almost painful. She felt the town breathe. She sensed its moods, the sorrow of the ancient stones, the secrets held tight within the gnarled roots of the forest. Liam Henderson was the anchor in Elara's often turbulent world. His family were stonemasons. Generations of Hendersons had built and repaired Ravenswood. They dealt in solid things, rock, mortar, logic. Liam embodied this practicality. He was steady, grounded. His concern for Elara was a constant gentle pressure. He saw her fascination with the darkness, and it worried him more than he usually let on. He tried to shield her from it, tried to be her light. He noticed the subtle shift in Elara after Lucian. Elara found herself drawn to the places Lucian might be. It was an unconscious pull, a magnetic force she couldn't resist. One grey afternoon she walked the perimeter of Ravenwood Manor. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. And then she saw him, standing near the rusted, formidable gates. He was not looking at the manor. He was looking at her, as if he had been expecting her arrival. His silver eyes held an unnerving stillness, a deep, knowing calm. He did not move as she approached. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a drumbeat against the silence. She stopped a few feet away. The air crackled between them. Lucian's cryptic words ignited a fire in Elara. Some things that are lost wished to be found. She had to know more, about him, about what he meant. She plunged into the dusty archives of the Ravenswood Historical Society, a place she knew well. But now she searched with a new urgency, a desperate need. She pored over brittle leather-bound journals, scanned faded maps, hunted for any mention of a stranger with silver eyes, any legend that matched his unnerving presence. Her fingers traced lines of forgotten lore, days blurred into nights of relentless searching. Then she found it. A glimpse beyond the veil. The black feather felt cold beneath Elara's touch. A silent message from an unknown sender. Lucian. The name echoed in her mind. Everything pointed towards him, towards Ravenwood Manor. The decaying house on the hill seemed to pulse with a dark invitation. It called to her more strongly than ever before. She knew she had to go. The manor held answers. She was certain of it. Answers about Lucian, about her heritage. One blustery afternoon, Elara found herself at the rusted gates of Ravenwood Manor. She pushed against the ancient iron. It groaned in protest. Then, with a shriek of tortured metal, it gave way, just enough for her to slip through. The manor loomed before her, its windows like vacant eyes watching her every move. Stepping inside, dust motes danced in the slivers of weak light. The silence was profound, a heavy, breathless hush. She walked through cavernous rooms, furniture draped in white sheets like silent ghosts, portraits on the walls, their eyes seeming to follow her. Then in the grand hall, she saw it, the same raven symbol from her locket, from the charter, carved into the great stone fireplace. It was larger here, more commanding. As she reached out to touch it, the air grew colder still. A whisper brushed her ear, too faint to understand, but undeniably there. Section 2. Silver Eyes and Shadowed Truths. Lucian's Overture. A floorboard creaked above her. Elara froze. Her heart leaped into her throat. She was not alone. She spun around, expecting a groundskeeper, or perhaps some curious townsfolk. But the figure that emerged from the shadows of the grand staircase was Lucian. He moved with his usual silent grace. His silver eyes seemed to glow in the gloom of the decaying hall. He did not seem surprised to see her there, almost as if he had willed her presence, summoned her to this desolate place.
You felt its call. The manor remembers its own.
He descended the last few steps, stopping a short distance from her. His gaze was intense, penetrating, as if he could see the questions swirling in her mind, the fear, the undeniable fascination.
You seek answers, Elara Thorne, about yourself, about me.
He gestured towards the raven symbol on the fireplace.
This house holds many, but some truths are dangerous to uncover.
He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. Elara found her voice, though it trembled slightly.
Who are you, Lucian?
The question hung heavy between them. He smiled then, a faint melancholic curve of his lips. It did not reach his eyes.
I am a guardian, a keeper of the balance. Ravenswood is a place where the veil between worlds is thin.
He looked around the decaying hall.
And sometimes things slip through, things that do not belong.
His words were cryptic, yet they resonated with a chilling truth within Elara. She felt the ancient magic stir.
And the symbol, my locket, it has the same mark.
Lucian's gaze softened almost imperceptibly.
It signifies a lineage, a bloodline tied to this place. To its protection, your ancestors were guardians too, Elara, just as mine were. And now the shadows are stirring again. A darkness approaches Ravenswood, one that requires us both.
Her mind reeled. This was more than she had ever imagined. A destiny she never knew she possessed. The supernatural occurrences in Ravenswood began to escalate. No longer were they subtle whispers or fleeting shadows. They became bolder, more menacing. Livestock was found dead in the fields, not by predators, but by something that left no tracks. only a chilling aura of unnatural cold. Doors in the town would slam open and shut violently, even when bolted. Objects would fly off shelves in the general store, shattering on the wooden floor. Whispers turned into frightened murmurs, then into outright panic. The townsfolk were on edge, their usual stoicism replaced by a growing dread. They gathered in small anxious groups in the dimly lit tavern, in the town square. Their eyes darted nervously towards the encroaching woods, towards Ravenwood Manor. They spoke of old curses, of legends their grandparents had warned them about. The uneasy peace of Ravenswood was shattered, replaced by a palpable fear, a sense that something terrible was unfolding, something beyond their comprehension or their control. They needed someone to blame. Lucian, with his sudden appearance and unnerving presence, became an easy target for their fear. Whispers followed him like shadows. Accusations were muttered just out of earshot. Some even began to look at Elara with suspicion. Her known fascination with the town's darker side, her solitary wanderings, her recent quiet meetings with the mysterious stranger. She felt their distrust, their fear. It was a heavy burden to bear, especially when she herself was struggling to understand the unfolding events. Liam tried to shield Elara. He publicly defended her. He attempted to reason with the increasingly agitated townsfolk, but his words often fell on deaf ears. Fear was a powerful poison, and it was spreading quickly. He saw the growing chasm between Elara and the community, and between Elara and himself. Her connection to Lucian, to the unfolding mystery, was pulling her further away. He felt a desperate need to protect her, but he was unsure from what, or whom. The seen, or the unseen. Elara knew she couldn't ignore Lucian's words or the escalating terror in Ravenswood. She felt a responsibility, a pull towards the destiny he had hinted at. She sought him out again, not at the manor this time, but at the edge of the whispering woods where the ancient trees stood like silent sentinels. He was there, as if expecting her. The moonlight dappled through the leaves, casting eerie shadows on his face. His silver eyes watched her approach, patiently, knowingly.
The town is afraid. These occurrences, is this the darkness you spoke of?
It is a symptom, a precursor. The veil weakens and an old entity stirs, one that feeds on fear, on chaos. Your heritage, Elara, gives you a unique ability, a sensitivity to these energies, a potential to fight back, but you cannot do it alone.
His unspoken offer hung in the air, an alliance, a dangerous path. Liam stepped out from behind a thick oak, his face a mask of anger and hurt.
What are you doing? Stay away from her! You're the cause of all this trouble!
Lucian remained calm, unflustered by Liam's outburst.
Your fear blinds you, boy. She is not a child to be shielded. She has a role to play.
The tension between the three of them was a palpable force. Elara felt torn. Liam, her oldest friend, her anchor to normalcy, and Lucian, the enigmatic stranger who spoke of destiny, of ancient magic, of a darkness she somehow knew was real.
Liam, please, it's not what you think. There are things happening, things I need to understand.
But Liam shook his head, betrayal etched on his face.
I don't understand you anymore, Elara.
He turned and disappeared back into the shadows, leaving Elara standing with Lucian. The choice, it seemed, was already being made. Liam's departure left a cold void in the moonlit clearing. Elara felt the sting of his words, the pain of his misunderstanding. Yet Lucian's presence beside her was a steady, unwavering force. He did not press her, he simply waited. The silence stretched, filled only by the rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Elara finally turned to him, her resolve hardened by the very conflict she now faced.
Tell me everything, Lucian. Tell me what this darkness is and what we must do.
She needed to know. The fate of Ravenswood, and perhaps her own, depended on it. Lucian's silver eyes held a deep sorrow, a weight of centuries.
The entity is ancient, older than Ravenswood itself. It is a being of pure shadow. It was bound long ago by our ancestors, yours and mine. The manor was built not as a home, but as a fortress, a seal against its power.
Elara listened, her mind racing, trying to absorb the enormity of his words. Her ancestors, guardians, a legacy she never knew.
Your locket and the sigils within the manor, they are keys, wards, part of the binding. The entity, known in forgotten texts as Morwen, the devourer of light, is stirring. The weakening of the veil is its opportunity. There is a prophecy. It speaks of a time when Morwen would try to break free. It speaks of two guardians, descendants of the original binders, who must unite their strength, or all will be consumed.
Elara felt a shiver trace her spine. Two guardians. The implication was clear. Her and Lucian. The weight of this destiny settled upon her shoulders. Heavy, unyielding. It was a terrifying prospect, but also, strangely, it felt right. As if her entire life, her fascination with the shadows, her connection to Ravenswood had been leading her to this very moment. The choice Liam presented was no longer a simple one between two people. It was a choice between a forgotten past and a terrifying future. A choice that would define her and her world. The following days in Ravenswood were thick with an almost unbearable tension. The sky seemed permanently bruised. A perpetual twilight clung to the town. The townsfolk, once merely anxious, were now openly terrified. They barricaded their doors at dusk. They whispered prayers. And they looked for someone to blame. Lucian remained their primary target. But Elara, now seen more frequently in his company, also drew their suspicion. The whispers about her intensified. No longer just curious but laced with fear and accusation. She felt like an outcast. Then Morwen made its presence known more directly, more personally. Old Man Hemlock, the town's reclusive herbalist, was found in his small cottage. Not dead, but changed. His eyes were vacant, his skin pale and cold. He spoke in riddles, his voice raspy and unfamiliar. He drew strange symbols in the dust, symbols that mirrored the Raven sigil, but twisted. Corrupted. A dark energy clung to him, an aura of profound despair. It was clear he was no longer himself. Something had touched him, claimed a part of him. Elara and Lucian went to see him. The air in the small cottage was frigid, suffocating. Hemlock looked at Elara, and a flicker of something ancient and malevolent passed through his eyes.
The shadow calls the raven, he hissed, his voice like dry leaves skittering across stone. The bond will be your undoing, or your salvation.
His words, though chilling, confirmed Lucian's claims. The entity was real, it was aware of them, and it was actively working to sow discord, to weaken them before they could unite. The incident with Hemlock sent a fresh wave of terror through Ravenswood. This was no longer about broken objects or strange noises. This was about souls, about people being twisted from within. The townsfolk retreated further into their fear. Some began to pack their belongings, eager to flee Ravenswood and its encroaching darkness. The sense of urgency intensified. Elara knew they were running out of time. Morwen was growing stronger, and its influence was spreading like a creeping, insidious blight. They had to act, quickly. Liam watched Elara's growing alliance with Lucian with a mixture of heartbreak and fury. He could not understand her choices. To him, Lucian was the source of Ravenswood's troubles. He saw Elara slipping away from him, drawn into a world he didn't trust, a world he believed would destroy her. He felt he was the only one who could protect her. He started his own investigation. His desperation grew into an obsession. His plan was reckless, born of fear and a broken heart. He would expose Lucian for the monster he believed him to be. He would force Elara to choose, but his actions were driven by a possessive love. He was becoming a pawn in Morwen's game. Unknowingly, he was helping the shadow grow. Elara and Lucian delved deeper into Ravenwood Manor's secrets. The house guided them. Doors creaked open, hidden panels slid aside. In a hidden study, they found a journal, bound in cracked leather. Its pages were brittle, the script elegant. It belonged to Lucian's ancestor, a guardian from centuries past, who had faced Morwen before. The journal spoke of Morwen's true nature. It was a parasite, feeding on despair, on broken bonds, on fear. It sought a vessel, a powerful human host, to anchor itself in their world. The journal detailed binding rituals and spoke of a weakness, hidden deep beneath Ravenswood, in the oldest catacombs, where the veil was thinnest. A chilling realization dawned. Morwen sought a specific host, someone connected to Ravenswood's magic, like Elara or Lucian. The attacks were tests, probes, to gauge potential vessels, and sow chaos. The danger was personal, more immediate than imagined. The binding ritual required immense power. The previous guardians paid a terrible price. The prophecy took on a new meaning. It wasn't just about fighting together, it was about a shared destiny. The stakes had never been higher. The path ahead was fraught with peril. The true enemy had shown its face. A confrontation was inevitable. The unfurling storm, Liam's crusade and the town's fury. Liam's heart was a stone, heavy with fear and betrayal. He saw Elara slipping into darkness, a darkness embodied by Lucian. He believed he was her only salvation. His desperation twisted his intentions. He began to speak to the townsfolk. His voice carried an urgent tremor. He painted Lucian as a predator, the source of all their woes. Ravenswood was fertile ground for such accusations. The whispers grew into shouts, the fear into a simmering rage. Torches began to appear in the twilight. Pitchforks now glinted with menace. The townsfolk transformed into a mob, driven by Liam's fervent words, and by Morwen's subtle influence. The entity fed on this rising tide of anger. It delighted in the fracturing of community bonds. Elara and Lucian were now targets, hunted. Their sanctuary felt like a besieged outpost.
They don't understand,
she whispered, her breath misting the cold glass. Lucian stood beside her, a silent sentinel. His silver eyes surveyed the approaching storm.
Fear is a powerful weapon, Elara, and Morwen wields it with chilling expertise.
They knew they had to act, not just to confront the ancient entity, but to survive the night. The hunt was on. The air crackled with impending violence. The scent of burning pitch filled the night. Shouts echoed from the town below.
Bring out the sorcerer, the witch must pay.
Elara felt a cold dread. This was not just about an ancient evil anymore. It was about the darkness that lived within ordinary hearts, stirred by fear, manipulated by unseen forces. Lucian placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
We face Morwen first, then perhaps they will see the truth.
But Elara wondered if truth could pierce a veil of such profound terror-fueled blindness. Section 2, Into the Abyss, The Descent to Morwen's Heart. The journal spoke of catacombs, a hidden entrance beneath Ravenwood Manor, where the veil was thinnest. Morwen's power was anchored here. Elara and Lucian descended into darkness. They couldn't fight the town yet. Their enemy lay below, behind a crumbling wine cellar wall. A narrow stone staircase spiraled down. The air grew colder, damp, heavy with the scent of ages, and a palpable sense of dread. The locket around Elara's neck pulsed, a faint warm beat against the chill. Each step felt like a descent into another world, broken only by the drip of water and Elara's frantic heartbeat. Lucian moved with calm, but Elara sensed his tension. Shadows danced in the lantern light. The catacombs were a labyrinth. Tunnels branched off in all directions, lined with ancient empty crypts. The weight of forgotten souls pressed in. It was a place designed to break the spirit. Morwen's influence was stronger here. Whispers slithered through the darkness. Not her own name this time, but Liam's, his voice filled with accusation, with pain. Illusions flickered at the edges of her vision, phantoms of her deepest fears. She saw Liam turning away from her, disgust in his eyes. She saw Ravenswood consumed by shadows, her friends, her neighbors, lost. Lucian's hand on her arm steadied her.
It feeds on your doubt, Elara. Hold on to what is real. Hold on to your purpose.
She nodded, gripping her locket, a small anchor in the overwhelming darkness. Deeper they went. The air grew thick, almost unbreathable. The stones beneath their feet felt slick, unclean. They could feel Morwen's presence now, a vast, malevolent consciousness. Aware of their intrusion, the catacombs seemed to twist, to try and confuse them, to separate them. But Elara's locket glowed brighter, guiding them, pulling them towards the source, towards the heart of the abyss, towards the inevitable confrontation, the final battle for Ravenswood, and for their very souls. They were close now, terribly close. Section 3, Echoes of Battle, The Confrontation in the Deep. They emerged into a vast, cavernous chamber. At its center, a pool of oily darkness roiled. It pulsed like a diseased heart. This was Morwen's sanctum. The air thrummed with raw, untamed power. The entity did not have a single form, not yet. It was a vortex of shadow and whispers, of despair and malice. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, probing, testing. The temperature plummeted. Elara felt her breath catch in her throat. The sheer malevolence of the entity was a physical blow. It sought to crush their will before the fight even began. This was the Devourer of Light.
So, the little guardians have come. You cannot stop me. This world will be mine. Your light will be extinguished.
Shadows coalesced, taking on fleeting monstrous shapes, images of their deepest fears, their greatest failures. Lucian stepped forward. His own aura of ancient power flared, a silver light against the encroaching darkness.
We will not let you pass, Morwen.
The battle had begun. Words were no longer enough. Energy surged. Lucian unleashed blasts of silver light. They struck the shadows, causing them to hiss and recoil. Elara, drawing on the power of her lineage, focused her will. The locket blazed against her chest. She channeled its protective energy, forming a shield, deflecting the tendrils of despair that Morwen hurled at them. The cavern shook. Rocks rained down from the ceiling. The fight was desperate, brutal. Morwen was ancient, powerful. It fed on the very fear it inspired. It tried to turn them against each other, whispering poison into their minds, highlighting their doubts, their insecurities. Suddenly, a section of the cavern wall crumbled, and Liam stumbled in. His face was pale, his eyes wide with shock and dawning horror. He had followed them, driven by his misguided crusade. But what he saw now was not what he expected. He saw the true monster, the swirling vortex of pure evil. He saw Elara and Lucian fighting, not as villains, but as heroes, battling an unimaginable terror. His torch clattered to the ground. The carefully constructed reality he had built around his fear shattered. He finally understood. He had been so terribly wrong, and his actions had led them all into greater peril. Section 4. The Price of Dawn. Sacrifice, Choice and True Bonds. Morwen sensed Liam's arrival, his fear, his guilt. It saw an opportunity. A fresh wave of psychic assault battered them. Lucian staggered. His silver light flickered. Elara cried out as a tendril of shadow wrapped around her ankle, pulling her towards the roiling darkness.
Your friend has weakened you. His doubt is my strength.
Liam stood frozen for a moment, paralyzed by the enormity of his mistake. He saw Elara struggling. He saw Lucian, weakened but still fighting, and he knew what he had to do. His love for Elara, though misguided in its possessiveness, was still real.
No!
Liam roared. He snatched up a fallen piece of sharpened rock. He charged towards the shadow tendril holding Elara. He was no guardian. He had no magic, only courage born of desperation, and a desperate need for redemption. He slashed at the tendril. It recoiled with a shriek, releasing Elara. But another tendril, swift as a striking serpent, lashed out at him. It struck him in the chest. He gasped. A dark energy pulsed through him. He fell to his knees, but he had bought Elara precious seconds. He looked at her, his eyes filled with apology and a plea for forgiveness. Elara scrambled to her feet, her heart breaking at Liam's sacrifice, but his act of bravery ignited something within her, a fierce, protective rage. She looked at Lucian. Their eyes met. A silent understanding passed between them. The prophecy, two guardians, united strength. It wasn't just about fighting side by side, it was about a true merging of their power, their wills. Lucian nodded. He poured his remaining energy into her. Elara felt an incredible surge. The locket on her chest burned with an almost unbearable intensity. She was the conduit, the vessel for their combined power, the light of their ancestors. With a cry that echoed with generations of guardians, Elara unleashed a torrent of pure white light. It erupted from her, from the locket. It blasted into the heart of Morwen's shadowy vortex. The entity screamed, a sound of pure agony, of dissolving darkness. The light was anathema to its being, the combined power of two bloodlines, amplified by sacrifice, by love. The shadows writhed, contracted. Then, with a final deafening implosion, Morwen was torn apart. The oppressive darkness in the cavern lifted, slowly, replaced by a fragile, emerging quiet. The battle was over, but the cost was yet to be fully counted. Section 5. Ravenswood reborn, scars, guardians, and an enduring light. The immediate aftermath was silence, a heavy, ringing silence in the vast cavern. The roiling pool of darkness was gone, replaced by still, clear water. Elara sank to her knees, exhausted but alive. Lucian rushed to Liam's side. The dark energy was fading from his wound, but he was weak. So weak.
I'm sorry, Elara.
Liam whispered, his voice faint. Elara gently took his hand.
You were brave, Liam. You saved us,
she said, tears streaming down her face. His sacrifice had broken Morwen's hold. It had given them the opening they needed. He had found his redemption in the heart of darkness. They helped Liam out of the catacombs, back into the dawn that was just breaking over Ravenswood. The angry mob had dispersed, the torches extinguished. A few townsfolk remained, their faces etched with confusion, with shame. When they saw Elara and Lucian supporting a wounded Liam, the truth began to dawn. The real threat had not been among them, it had been beneath them. The fear that had gripped Ravenswood began to recede, slowly, replaced by a dawning understanding, and a profound sense of gratitude for the guardians who had protected them, even when they themselves were feared. In the weeks that followed, Ravenswood began to heal. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. Sunlight seemed brighter. The shadows in the woods felt less menacing. Liam recovered, his body mending, his spirit humbled. His friendship with Elara, though changed, endured. It was deeper now, forged in fire and understanding. He no longer saw Lucian as a rival, but as a fellow protector of their town. The love triangle had found its resolution, not in choosing one over the other in that way, but in the forging of truer, more honest bonds between all three. Elara's heart was with Lucian, a bond of shared destiny, and a love that had blossomed amidst the shadows. Ravenswood would never forget the darkness it had faced, or the guardians who had stood against it. Elara and Lucian took their place, not as mysterious outsiders, but as protectors. Their watch was eternal, for the veil remained thin, and shadows always lingered at the edges of the world. But now, Ravenswood had its light, its guardians, and a future built not on fear, but on courage, on sacrifice, and on the enduring power of love that had faced the abyss, and emerged scarred but stronger into a new dawn. The mystic shadows still danced, but they no longer held dominion.